Now we're going to look at intervals, and not just the size of the interval, that is how many lines or spaces it covers, but also a more subtle sizing of the interval, which we call quality. So if someone asks you what's the interval size, they might mean just give me a number. Is it a third, a fourth, or a fifth? But if they add the word quality, they mean something really specific. I mean, I could have a third that looks like this, a third, or I could have a third that looks like this. Would you agree that C to E is a third and C to E flat is a third? Yeah, it is. But they're not exactly the same. Do, mi, do, me, they sound a little different. So that slight difference, that they still occupy the same basic span, but have a slight chromatic difference, E to E flat, a difference of a half step perhaps, is the quality of the interval. So let's figure it out. Here is how we're going to look at it. First, we're going to take intervals that could be major or minor. And so we're only going to look at certain intervals. We're going to look at seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths. Move that down. Seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths. Those intervals can be major or minor. Other intervals will not be major or minor. Hang on, we'll get there. Stick with me on this. So here's the sort of quick method of why an interval is what it is. Let's take a third. I'm going to say F to A. If the third contains, here's the fancy definition, 4 half steps, it will be a major third. Now, 4 half steps is kind of a pain to remember. So there's another way to do it, and this is a pretty useful way. If the bottom note is the name of a major scale, F, does A fit in the F major scale? Yes, it does. This is a major third. Here's a sixth. A sixth has 9 half steps. That would be a pain to count up. But you could say, if I were in the major key of this bottom note, E, if I were in E major, would C sharp appear there in that scale or in that key? Yes, this is a major sixth. I'll do one more. Here's a seventh. If I were in the key, by the way, sevenths, major sevenths have 11 half steps. If I were in the key of E flat major, does D fit? Yes. This is a major seventh. But what if it were a D flat, E flat to D flat? Now the interval is smaller. See, it went from D natural to D flat. I got closer to the bottom note. It's smaller by a half step. Now it's a minor seventh. So first I have major, but getting smaller. Is minor. Okay. Here was that major third. Now it's a minor third. It got smaller. Watch this. What happened to the interval? Which note moved? The bottom note moved up. It got smaller as well. This is a different minor third. Here was the major sixth. Can I make it smaller? C sharp. If you want me to put the natural sign, I can. Smaller. Minor sixth. Could I have done something different if I were allowed to change the bottom note? I need it to get smaller. I need to get that bottom note closer to the top note. Minor sixth. That way works as well. What happens if I go overboard? What if I both get the top note, so we had major third, minor third. What if I get even closer? Double flat. There is a term for that. Diminished. Diminished is a half step smaller than minor. This is a diminished third, lowercase d, 3. Diminished third. Remember that minor sixth that we had here just a second ago? Can we make it diminished? How could I do that? One way. It's smaller now. Another way. Smaller. Pull that bottom note up closer. Okay. How about seventh? What seventh is this? If I write it without any accidentals, D up to C. Let's back up and test that process again. If I were in the key of D major, what kind of C would I have? This is why you have to know your major key signatures. This should be a C sharp to be major, but it's C natural. It's too low. This is a minor seventh. How can I make it diminished? Yeah, I could do that. Hey, C flat is the same sound as B. Can I write a B instead of a C flat? Nope. Here's why. On paper, this looks like a diminished seventh. On paper, this looks like a major sixth. Do they sound the same? Yes, they're enharmonic to each other. But it matters how we write things on the page, because our musical art is so linked to written notation. That's how it developed over hundreds of years. That's one of the reasons that we say these are important to distinguish between on the page. All right, you know, is it possible to get bigger than major? Why, yes, I'm glad you asked, because it is. 1/2 step bigger than major is augmented. Augmented third. Sometimes you'll see people write 3+ for augmented. I'd say stick to writing an A for augmented for now. We'll use the augmented symbol, the plus sign, another time in a different way. Augmented third. Okay, let's do a little practice here. Some kind of sixth. Can you tell which one it is? Now, you might not want to think of a G sharp major scale. I sure wouldn't, because it's got more than 7 sharps. It's got double sharps in it. Do this. Oh, wow. What's G to E? That's a major sixth. What happens when I let the sharp happen? The bottom note gets closer to the top note. It got smaller. Okay. Could you write for me above G a major seventh? A major seventh. You could run right up the G major scale. What will you write? There. Major seventh. Could you write for me a major second below B? A major second. Some kind of A. Hey, wait a minute, we've already done these. Major seconds are whole steps. That's a whole step. Major second. make this an augmented second? Sure. Do something to the A to make this an augmented second. We want it to get further away from the B. Ooh. Yeah, augmented second. If you recall, the augmented second is the interval we encounter in the harmonic minor scale in our Ha tetrachord, half augmented half. Okay, we're going to leave that side of the equation for now, and we're going to go to the other side of the equation. Here's where we're going to deal with unisons, fourths, fifths, and octaves. All the other intervals we didn't deal with. This side is actually a little simpler. If I write an interval that fits in this category like a fifth, and I say, if this were a G major scale, does the D fit in that G major scale? Yes. The answer is not major. The answer instead is called perfect. Perfect. Why? As music history. Go back to the Middle Ages. End of the Middle Ages, into the Renaissance. Well, middle of the Middle Ages. There's reasons. For now, the video is running long. We gotta just cut to the chase. If it's a fifth, it fits in this G major scale, we're gonna call it perfect. So this is a perfect fifth. Your theory teacher really hates it when you say a major fifth. It feels like a unicorn has died every time somebody says major fifth. I actually had a student who told me that her high school theory teacher made them run laps every time they would say major fifth. And that felt so good inside. Anyway, what if I do something to this perfect fifth and I make it not perfect anymore? What if I make it smaller? Well, fortunately, it's a word you've already learned. It's diminished. So this is now a diminished fifth. Guess what? We don't use the word minor either when it comes to unison, fourth, fifth, or octave. We just don't. Diminished fifth. Well, I bet you could guess what would be the one that makes it bigger. Yep, augmented. By the way, you know how I was counting half steps before? These all have their proper half step amounts. An augmented fifth is 8 half steps. But we're going to stick to these labels for quality. Augmented fifth is bigger than a perfect fifth. Okay? What kind of fifth is this one? If we were in E flat major, does B flat fit? Yep. Here's a cool thing. Watch this. In the perfect side of the equation, if both intervals have the same accidental, they're going to be perfect. I can take away the accidental, and it's not the same sounding pitch, but the distance between them remains the same. It's still perfect. I could even have E double sharp to B double sharp. That looks terrible, but you don't have to sweat it. You say, aha, it's a fifth. They both have the same accidental. They are perfect. You know what? It works the same with fourths. Perfect fourth. Also a perfect fourth. Likewise, a perfect fourth. There is only one place where that same accidental rule does not apply. That is when you have these two notes paired together, F and B, or B and F. These are a funky place in the naturally occurring tones that we collect in our major and minor scale relationships. So that if we have an F and a B together, they will not have the same accidental if they are going to be perfect. Let's take this fourth and make it perfect. Right now, if I were in the key of F major, what would this B have to have in it to fit in the F major scale? Now it's a perfect fourth. Likewise, if I started with F sharp, what would this B have to have on it to fit in the F sharp major scale? Actually, it does fit right now. Now it's a perfect fourth. What is it without any accidentals? Remember when we had the F, we had to have a B flat? It's too big now. It's bigger than perfect. How about the fifth, B up to F? Well, in order to make it perfect, if I were in the key of B, I would have to have an F sharp, not the same accidental. If I had a B flat, now it's perfect. So when B and F are together, they don't have the same accidental to be perfect. What is this one? Without any accidentals? Remember I had an F sharp here to make it perfect. If I take the F sharp away, it gets smaller. It's a diminished fifth. So we have size and quality. We have 4 possible quality labels for the 2nd, 3rd, 6th, and 7th. We have 3 possible quality labels for unison, 4th, 5th, and octave.